So what I'm doing is starting out by wetting the top half of the paper with some clear water and being sure to cut around that little umbrella as well. So just wetting it all to the point where the paper shows a very light sheen, and that's when you know you've saturated the paper enough. And the reason why I'm doing this is so we can add in some clouds, and I do want to add in some fluffy clouds, larger and small clouds that are running through with some white spaces in between. So the clean white parts of the paper are just going to leave some spaces in between the clouds as I just get my brush and dab in bits of color here and there to indicate clouds. I'm not spending much time at all doing these. You want to also make sure they are irregular looking, not too structured and neat. And I'm just picking up a bit of grey here and popping that in the corner. Further down, the blue that I've used is I think it's an ultramarine blue. Definitely it's ultramarine blue. So going in now and adding in some smaller clouds and darker areas to the clouds. And this is just using just that old muck that I've left in my palette, which I haven't cleaned out as usual. And it's again a greyish color. And now what I'm doing, I'm just getting a bit of yellow, a bit of 𝗘𝗕𝗔𝗬𝗍 yellow, and just mixing that up to add to the horizon line. And I'm just going in, remember to cut around that umbrella again. I'm doing that because I do want to make that umbrella a different color later on. And just carrying that wash slightly up, that paint slightly up into the blue. Let it touch and mix together, and you can get some interesting variations and just some interesting mixes that when you let it do its own thing. This painting is based on a previous one that I've done before. There's no reference to it. I just drew in the figures, and with beach landscapes, they're a little bit more simple than doing like a streetscape or even a landscape with trees. As you can see, a lot of the larger background, midground, and the foreground just blends together quite well, and you only need to indicate it slightly for it to read well. So I've now gone through and done that. The orange to indicate the sun on the horizon. So now I'm just coming in with a bit of cobalt blue and touching the papers very slightly with my brush just underneath the yellow area, a golden sort of area, and let it run into the color above as well. It's gonna create that softness, and I have let it dry for a bit as well so that it doesn't completely just mix into each other. So you can still see there is a soft edge separating the horizon line where the sea finishes, and it turns into sky. So now I'm mixing up a little bit of yellow ochre with some raw sienna, more yellow ochre in the mix there, and I'm just adding in, again while the paint's still wet, letting it mix that sea area, just letting it run into the sand that I'm putting in, the beach area. So I'm very carefully cutting around all these figures as well. You can see there's two figures to the right that are sitting kind of looking out to the sea. There's one in the middle with the umbrella, and then there's three to the left hand side, and I haven't colored them in because I want to make them different colors similar to the umbrella later on, and they'll be the last thing that I add in. these are perfect landscapes to start off doing because you will be able to practice some essential techniques in terms of your basic washes, adding in some figures and maybe a bit of land in there as well in terms of some trees or mountains in the background, some rocks, and they're not too complex and quite enjoyable to do. Don't need even really to look at a reference when you've done this a few times. So again, just filling in that bottom area with a mixture of yellow ochre and a bit of burnt sienna now. The brush I'm using is a Chinese calligraphy brush. You can use any type of watercolor mop brush as well, but be careful that you're not adding too much water down the bottom. You want it to be darker at the bottom to just help with the perspective. And while the paper's still wet, I'd love to take that opportunity just to add in bits and pieces of darker variations and textures and things like that. And you know, later you see it all dries and melts into each other. Sometimes you just, you know, for all these wet and wet techniques, you just need to touch the paper where you need to and let it do its thing. If you keep fiddling around and trying to alter what it's going to look like, it starts looking funny, overworked. I'm painting this umbrella now a very light shade of red / pink now. So again, I'm just coloring it in, and it is mixing a bit into the sky, as you can see, but that's not a big issue. So really at this stage I'm trying to get the main background colors on. So I've dried the sheet with the hairdryer now, and I'm going in to the figures, so coloring them in now with a bit of red and a bit of blue / purple there. But keeping it very light as well. So still darker than say the midground and background, but not too dark. And also just getting in the legs quite quickly there. And I'm gonna go to this bottom figure and color him in as well with a very light pink, trying to indicate, suggest some flesh tones here. Indicate some clothing. This entire painting took me about 25 to 30 minutes to do, including the preliminary drawing, and I really enjoy doing stuff like this because I do find it quite relaxing. I don't have to worry too much about a reference photo. So here I'm just adding in some clothes, so I've just added in some shorts, I think, to these couple of figures on the left here. Just further defining that detail, and you can go as far as you want with that. You know, I try to keep it to a couple of washes, just to help it look a bit more fresh. Now adding in some shadows to this figure in the midground there, and adding in the shadow of the umbrella that it's casting. And I'm doing the stem of the umbrella at the same time. go in, making that umbrella a bit darker because it hasn't stood out against the sky enough actually, and indicating the darker area underneath at the bottom of the umbrella as well. So pretty much everything from here is the final, pretty much the final wash, where you're trying to bring these figures to make them stand out a bit more. Now I'm adding in the shadows to these three figures to the left. I've just made them directly below. And I've actually decided to darken their legs a bit more. The shadow is really important. I'm also adding in just some little like a shoulder strap there to indicate a bag, and the person to the third figure there holding something under the arm, and just trying to draw in the arms, adding in maybe a hat there, a bit of hair on the other one. You don't need to spend too much time really doing that. But as I was saying, the shadow beneath them is very important because that is what grounds these figures. Doing the same thing for this one in the mid ground. Put a little cap on him and just indicate a bit more of a shadow being cast from the umbrella. Finally going and doing these last two figures on the right. They're sitting on the beach there, just looking out to the sea. Now I'm just decided to add in a jetty at the back, and I have drawn that in before, and this just adds a bit of detail, a bit extra detail to the background. Doesn't have to be, don't have to spend too much time doing it, just indicate that the wooden planks moving across there, and slowly getting smaller as you get further in the distance. And I'm adding in some quick lamp posts. These make for great little presents if you have a friend or someone that's interested, or you're thinking of a present to give someone. They don't take very long to do, and often turn out looking quite fresh, and especially when you're starting out, it's definitely a good scene to do and practice on. Adding some seaweed, rocks, stuff like that near to where the beach, the water hits the sand, and I'm just also doing the same thing to moving up into the foreground here as well, finishing off this umbrella by adding in some extra detail emphasizing that shadow a bit more. When you're starting out as well, you do want to try use experiment on working on larger bits of paper. And when I say larger, I mean even from A3 sized, and that's just so that you can get used to doing some large washes. And to me, it feels quite nice as well, having just that bit of extra space to practice some of these techniques. Now with bit of grey paint, I'm going through and I'm just adding in the birds in the distance, just a few birds here and there in the sky, and just polishing it up in bits, places here and there, but it's pretty much pretty much done. Last bit, you know, you can get a bit of gouache, a little bit of white gouache like I've got there, and just add some highlights onto the shoulders and the heads of some of these figures. And fortunately I've mixed up almost like a greyish gouache because my water container has also turned that color. So that's the end of the video. If you have any questions, any suggestions or comments, then just write a comment below. Thanks again for watching.